let's get started with TrendGraphix. So when you open it up, this is kind of like what you're looking at right now. It's showing you some bar graphs, something that you're familiar with if you've been joining us on Wednesdays, where I go over what some of the market is looking like using the tool of TrendGraphix. Let me tell you, it's a tool that I think everybody needs to know and understand how to search, how to use it, how to explain it. You should be using it with your buyers and your sellers, every customer you have. This is one of the tools you have as a resource that helps make you look like an expert of what's going on in the market. And that's why they're with you, and that's why they're relying on you, because you're the professional. And you have all the neat gadgets like TrendGraphix, just like Batman has all his good stuff. All right, so when you first open it up, it automatically gives you a picture of this, which, and if you can follow my little cursor here, this is everything in Miami-Dade County. And I haven't really broken it down into any particular geographic area. It's the entire Dade County MLS. And it also includes single family and condos. So it's every residential property in Miami-Dade County. So I'd like to go through some of the ways in which you can use this. There's a lot of options here for you, and so that you become more familiar with it. Right now, what this is telling you is 3 different things. And here's the reference. It's telling you, oops, let me get out of there. It's telling you the big bars here, the light green, this is what is for sale. The dark green bars is what's actually sold, and it's month by month by month. The red is the pending line. How many do we currently have pending? So if you just looked at this, again, this is just a really 30,000 foot view of all of Miami-Dade County, of every property and everywhere. If you looked at this trend here, what do you see is that from about March and April, there started to be a decline in inventory. It started going down, 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 down. And now you can see we're at the bottom of a slide, but it's slowing down a little bit. So I'm going to suspect that this is, in the next several months, that's going to bottom out and it's going to start maybe going back up. I don't know, but that's just my suspicion. We'll find out when it actually happens. Kind of looking at a crystal ball. You never know what the future, you know, when someone says, what do you think is going to happen 6 months from now? Well, we can tell what has happened in the past up until the most current month. And if there is a trend line, you can make a somewhat of a prediction of where it's going to go in the future based on the trend line. So you see decline, decline, decline. The decline is starting to flatten out a little bit. So more than likely, this is going to go out another month or 2 and then maybe start going back up. So here's the pending line, which is your red line. You can see when COVID happened, April, May, June, this all crashed in here. So pendings went down, and then of course, when pendings go down, the next 60 to 90 days, the closings are going to follow, and they're also going to go down. So you can see the big gap between the pendings and the closing here, which typically these 2 lines follow each other pretty closely. So if you look at the last 4 months, 5 months, you can see there's a correlation between pending and closing that's pretty close. The gap or the difference would be those are the deals that are falling through or not making it to closing for one reason or another. Typically, it's either an appraisal issue, or it's an inspection issue, or they didn't get qualified for their loan. Those are your top 3 reasons for pending deals not to actually close. So if we look up at the top, there's a whole bar up here, and you have choices to click on all of these. So my 2 favorites is the one that we're looking at now, because it tells you a lot about what's going on in the market. My second favorite would be over here, months of inventory on the far right. So if you go there and you click, it's going to bring up a different looking graph. And this is months of inventory, meaning, and that's defined as, if no new properties came on the market, how long would it take, based on what's currently selling, how long would it take to completely deplete the inventory that we currently have on the market? So right now, what it's saying is 7.8 months of inventory. Okay, so let me go back to explain that a little different way and better. So here's the inventory right here. We have 17,601 properties, all properties in Miami-Dade County on the market for sale. We currently are selling 22 to 28. And what I'd like to do is take the three of these and average them if you wanted to be more accurate, because it may be up or down a little bit. But I would average these. And if you look at the numbers, it would probably come out to about 25, maybe 2,600. So if you took 17,000 and you divided it by 2,500, in this case, 22 is what it's going to show. So take this number, divide it by that number, and that's going to give you your months of inventory. And you can see that the trend was coming down, down, down. The market's getting tighter, tighter, tighter. How do you explain that? Whose advantage is that to? That's the advantage to the seller, because there's few properties on the market with lots of buyers looking to buy. That means there's multiple offers on properties in a really tight seller's market. How do you define a seller's market? 6 months is probably the break-even time. So if it's 5 months, 6 months, 7 months, I would call those 3 months of inventory kind of a balanced market. When you get lower than that, it's a seller's market. When you get higher, over 7 months, when you get to 8, 9, 10 months, it's a buyer's market, meaning the buyers have the advantage because there's too many sellers and not enough buyers buying their property. So if you think about the difference between a buyer's market and a seller's market, we're going to need to break this down a little bit more to get more detailed information, because again, these are real general numbers. It includes all single family, it includes all condos. There's even probably including in here duplex, triplex. So depending on the appointment that I'm going on with a buyer or a seller, this is the big picture of what's happening, but it is not relative to the buyer that I'm going to talk to or to the seller I'm going to talk to, because I would want to break it down more. And you're going to see this is going to be drastically different as we break this down to a more specific geographic market and a more specific product market, meaning single family versus condo. That's an important gauge of the market. It tells who's in control, buyers or sellers. It also will tell you where is the pressure on the price. So if it's a seller's market, which we've been in a strong seller's market for the last 4 or 5 months, the prices are going up and up and up because there's very few sellers with lots of buyers claiming to get those properties, particularly as we're going to see in single family. So that means a lot of buyers are pushing up the prices on very few sellers. That's a seller's market. Now the inverse is true when it's a buyer's market, meaning there's a lot of inventory and there's not so many buyers. The prices are going to start dropping the more skewed that gets, the higher. So if you see this going up to 14, 15, 16, 17 and north of that, that means prices are coming down. If you're a seller, you're going to drop your price to get the, one of the 2 or 3 buyers you got out there. So if you're working with a buyer in a seller's market, you can set them up to say, hey, look, this is a strong seller's market. What that means is that there's a lot more buyers like yourself chasing very few sellers. As a result, there's strong competition, and you're going to have to probably make an offer close to, if not at or higher than the asking price. And don't be surprised if there's going to be multiple offers and you're going to be in a bidding war, because that's the nature of the environment when it's a strong seller's market. And when the market turns around, which may be in another 12 months, 15 months from now, if you're a buyer, you're thinking, oh, I'm going to make an offer on a property that's 10% below the asking price. And if you're talking to the seller, you're saying, you really need to consider taking this offer because we've been on the market for 6 months, a year, and it's the first offer we've had. I don't know if you want to wait that long for another offer. That or we're going to have to lower the price to entice more offers. So it's just the opposite. And you need to set up your buyer and your seller's expectations in advance by using these graphs and months of inventory to describe the market that they're in, to let them know what to expect. Just as a caution though, because I hear and see a lot of sellers agents, listing agents that will try to put in a contract that it's not contingent on an appraisal, meaning the buyer's gonna buy it whether it appraises or not. Obviously it's still subject to their financing, but you know, sometimes they can get the financing even though it doesn't appraise, as long as they're going to make up the cash difference. Just a word of caution that you need to put some kind of parameters or limitations in the language on the contract, meaning if they put something like buyer agrees to buy the property regardless of whether it under appraises or not. Well, that's all fair and good, provided that there's a limit to how far it under appraises. So I would probably adjust the verbiage saying, provided that it doesn't appraise for any more than 10,000 under the price. Because what if the buyer says, oh yeah, if it comes up short, I'll pay for the difference, but it ends up coming out 25,000 under the price. And then the buyer's thinking, oh, well, I know I agreed to it, but I wasn't expecting it to be that far off. So put some kind of limitation in there if your buyer's going to agree in writing to pay the cash difference between the purchase price and the appraisal, provided it doesn't exceed, you know, 10,000 or 5,000 or whatever that number might be, that's agreeable. All right. All right. So let me go through these others real quick, and then we're going to get into some other parameters. So here you have, this is interesting. The average price per square foot, which right now, this is not valuable information because again, we got everything in all of Miami-Dade in here. But when you break it down into smaller geographic areas and products, this becomes much more accurate. Here you have days on the market, which kind of, this is going to go hand in hand with your months of inventory. So if we're in a strong seller's market, that means your days on the market is going to be less. Properties are selling very quickly. They're not staying on the market for, you know, 180, 360 days. And then you have your average price. And again, there's a big gap here. Sorry, I keep getting there. There's a big gap here because this is everything in all of Miami-Dade. That will narrow as we go to our search categories. So let's go ahead and go to our search categories. First of all, you have up here, this is Miami-Dade versus Broward County as a drop-down menu. And you would pick which county are you going to be doing a search for to get market data. So here, your areas on your area map, you can search by that specifically. It looks like this. It will tell you what the areas and the sections are. Now this is old school, guys, from an old school guy. If you go back to when you got your license, I got mine over 30 years ago. You have your areas and you have your sections. Your area is 36 square miles made up of 36 square miles. And each square is a section. So each of these areas represents a 36 square mile area. And if you have your map, you know where that is. And you can break it down even more. So you can choose by that. I typically would not. If you want to, it's there and available for you. Here you have your municipalities. This is probably used quite a bit. So as an example, you're working with a buyer and they say, you know, I only want to look at homes in the city of Biscayne Park. That's the municipality of Biscayne Park. Or they say, I only want to look in Miami Shores, or I only want to look in North Miami. Each municipality or city has its own municipality code. So as an example, North Miami is 06, Biscayne Park is 17, Miami Shores is 11, El Bertel is 18, and all that information is available for you on the same map that I just showed you. So if you're not familiar with what those are just off the top of your head, you need to grab a map so that you can better narrow down your search field. I find this to be very useful. So you can search only in a municipality. If you're looking in for condos, you can search a particular building. Now there's a zillion of them in all of Broward, or excuse me, all of Dade County. So if you want to, if the building is a big enough cross section, or it has enough data in it because there's enough units in the building, you can search just for a building. However, if you're doing a search and the building is a relatively small, it's not enough data, I think, to properly represent the true picture of what's going on in the market. Or perhaps it's 2 or 3 buildings and they're all comparable buildings, comparably priced, comparable amenities in the general same geographic area. You could use that. You could use just zip codes if you want. You can combine 3 or 4 or 5 different zip codes that are neighboring each other. Or here you can choose by the actual municipality name itself if you didn't have the code, which I refer to here as the municipality code. Okay, so this is really important. In my opinion, you need to always make a selection here where all these others are optional, but you need to really separate and just make a distinct difference between single family and condo, because there's drastic differences in those 2 different markets. If you're in the condo market, you're not looking at single family, and you don't want to know the stats of the single family and vice versa. So as an example, I'm going to put a little click here in this box. I'm going to take this one out. So I've eliminated all of them, and I only want to know what's going on with single family. So just as an example, if we go up here and we look at these numbers, and if you remember the months of inventory, which included everything, was what, about 7 or 8? And now I'm changing and looking only at single family. And now I'm going to show the chart. I'm going to click on this show chart, which is one of these buttons at the top and the bottom. It's going to give me new numbers. Drastically different looking figure there now. This is all the entire Miami-Dade County, just single family homes. So very different looking picture in numbers, a much tighter months of inventory. And now we're looking at, we have been the last several months about 3, now we're at 3.5. So we've kind of bottomed out, and now the market's starting to go up. So it's going in the direction of a buyer's market, but we are still way under 6 months inventory. So we are still in a very strong seller's market. It's just the trend line, should it continue, indicates that we're going more towards a balanced 6-month market. Who knows where it's going to go from there? I'll let you know in another 3 months once we have a couple more indicators. All right. So this is single family, all of Dade County. Now, if we go back down, I want to just show you this as an illustration. Now, if I wanted to change this and I wanted to know only what's going on in the condo market, I'm going to move this to condo only. And then I'll go back up to the top and show the chart, which means it's going to recalculate what's happening in the condo market. Now you can see a lot more inventory with a lot fewer sales. If you look at your months of inventory, it's not going to be 3, it's going to be 11. So there's quite a different market for condo as there is for single family home. So you have to know what market you're in. So if you want to narrow down your search even more, you may want to do that by looking at, as an example, Miami Beach is a big market. So the municipality code for Miami Beach would be 02. So I want to go over here to municipality and click on 02, show the chart. Wow. Heavy condo market on Miami Beach. It's double what it is for most of the rest of Miami-Dade County. There's over 20 months inventory. So what does that mean if you have a buyer that wants to buy a condo in Miami Beach? It means you pretty much have your pickings, and you can probably negotiate off the asking price by a good amount, opposed to being really tight as you would have in the single family community. Okay, so I'm going to take that back out. And why don't we put in here, Aventura is a big condo market. So let's see what Aventura would look like. So Aventura would be, their zip code is 33180. So we can search it that way. 33180, 33180. 180, 33180. So I'm going to put a click there, and then I'm going to recalculate this with a show the chart. So this is condos in Aventura. Now there's a quick, going down, 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 and now all of a sudden, again, a quick spike. Now, if you'll notice, these are all kind of similar, indicating that the market has bottomed out as far as months of inventory, and it's now trending upwards. So this is already a buyer's market and getting it to be a stronger buyer's market. Okay, that's what that picture is looking like. Single family homes. Let me take this back out and clear it. So let's look at single family homes only in, say, Biscayne Park, in Miami Shores. So Miami Shores is 11. Biscayne Park, which are almost comparable areas, is 17. So I'm going to look for both those communities, single family homes. Wow, that's interesting. That's I think a historic low months of inventory for single family homes. I can't remember it ever being quite that low, but the trend line is starting to go up, and now we're at 4.2. We're almost in a balanced market. So if the trend line continues, we're looking at a balanced market. So if I were talking to a seller, I'd say you're still in a pretty solid market right now as a seller because you're under 6 months of inventory. However, if we're going to put it on the market with a price that's really kind of stretching it a little bit, I don't want you to be on the market for another 3 months, because if this trend line continues, where do you think we're going to be in 3 months from now? Maybe we're going to be at a 7-month market for sellers, and the tide is shifting from a seller's market to a buyer's market. So with a trend line like this, we should price it aggressively and get it sold sooner rather than later. And if this were like a 7 and the trend line is going that way, I would say we need to get it sold like the first week or two, because in another 3 months, there's going to be downward pressure on prices when we get closer to 10 months inventory, 11 months or 12 months inventory. So this is kind of a prediction of the direction that pressure is going to be put on prices of homes. Again, right now, strong seller's market, but if it continues, again, the tide is going to be shifting. If this continues, I don't want to be selling a home 5, 6, 7 months from now. I want my home sold now, right? Now, that's just saying if that line continues. We don't know what's really going to happen. if there's an event that's going to really change things. I don't know. Okay, do we have any questions about any of this yet? Okay, let me go ahead and continue explaining some of the other options that you have. We went over zip code. Here's municipalities. Here you have your choice whether you're going to look for everything or whether you're specifying single family or condo. Here's a co-op. Here's condo. Here's a condominium. Here's hotels, timeshare, townhouses only, if you want to find out what that market is like, and so on. Here's duplex, triplex. So you can just get only very specific about the products that you're looking at. Okay, so here you're going to find a big difference in your statistics based on price range. So you could say, generally speaking, single family home is a very tight market that we have seen. However, there may be big differences depending on price range. So I would imagine it's a really tight market if your single family home is priced under, let's say, $700,000. And it might be a very different market over $1 million, right? So let's look at that as an example. Let me just go back and make sure I cleared out everything else here. Municipality, let me clear that out. Let me clear this out. Because I'm going to get a picture of everything in all of Miami-Dade County, specifying single family homes only. I don't think I picked anything else here. So single family, all of Miami-Dade County. I wanted to know what is under, well, no, that's, sorry. What's under, let's say 600,000. So from 0 to 600,000, that's the low end for single family. I imagine it's going to be a very tight market. Show the graph. Here we go. Okay. I don't know what happened, why that happened that way. So I went to Broward County. So here we're looking for, this is everything in Broward County. You can see the market there is even tighter than it is in Miami-Dade. That's like ridiculous low. So what we were going to do, and the point I was going to make is, let's lower the price range down to 600, let's say. So that's single family, and it may be getting even tighter. So let's see what that chart looks like. Wow, almost 1 month here, and now it's getting closer to 2 months. That's like ridiculously tight. So you can see your lower end market is much, much tighter than, let's see what your higher market is. Let's say if we move this up to 4 million and we start at maybe $1 million. So between $1 million and 4 million, let's see what that market looks like. So here we're at less than 2 months. Show the chart in the higher price range. And you can see there's now a big difference. There's a balanced market if you're looking at properties that are over $1 million but under 6. So again, there's a lot of ways to search this, and you have to make sure that whatever your seller or your buyer is that you're talking about, that you get a look of what's really happening in the market that you're talking to them about. Because these numbers are going to change. That picture is going to change. Their market that they're in, that niche, whatever that is, it's going to change. Geographically speaking, price range speaking, what municipality they're in, and what the product is. Single family, condo, townhome, etc. So I'm going to open this back up again. But that's really telling the difference in the market based on price range. Okay. Let me show you one more thing that I did in the first time around. Here on days on the market, an average number of days on the market here are the tall, I don't know what color that would be, light brownish. So it's 110 days. That's a lot. But again, this is everything. This is condo and single family home that I'm on. And the average price as it relates to the listing price. So listing price to original, excuse me, sales price as compared to the original list price as a percentage. So what this is saying is on average, homes are selling, or all these products are selling on an average of 90% of list price. So if it was listed for $100,000, on average, they're selling for 90. But again, that's not a good picture because we're talking about everything in Miami-Dade County. So let me lower this again, and you're going to see that change. It's going to get very tight, or tighter, shall I say. So that single family home, I would say that's going to get to like 90. Yeah, okay, much higher, 97. On average, homes are selling when you go to the smaller price range, under $500,000, single family homes. Instead of 90% of list price, on average, homes in that price range in Broward County are selling for 97%. So that's a good indication of how tight that is as a seller's market. They're getting 97% of their asking price. Now, you're probably going to see the opposite be true when you look at condos. So let's look at condos. Let's open this up. Let's go back to Miami Beach. Well, this is all of Miami-Dade. I didn't even break it down to Miami Beach, but you can see the condo market is getting an average of 89% of listing price. That's a long way away from 97, right? So that's another good indication of the difference between a buyer's market and a seller's market. There's a lot more flexibility depending on which way the market's going for you. Yeah, I keep getting in there. Okay, so this is the sold prices versus the for sale prices. Now that's interesting that that's so big. So let's narrow that down. Oh, because there's no limits, that's why. Under 4, no, that's too low. Under $500,000, condos. Okay, so now you're going to see the prices narrowing. So this is the difference in that price range of condos. This is the average list price. This is the average sold price in that price range here. So you can see they're close. So the story here, if you wanted to do the math, is going to be very close to the same as this story over here, where they're selling for an average of 88. So you can see they were higher, but as the inventory is climbing, as the months of supply of inventory is climbing, it's a stronger buyer's market. So they're negotiating stronger on a downward pressure on the price. So now they're only getting 88% of the list price, whereas before they were getting in the low 90s. So if I were talking with a seller right now that's going to be selling a condo, I would show them this and say, look at the direction this is going. And the reason that is because this is going up right here. It's going, what if it got to here again? That means the buyers are in control. They're dictating the market. They're getting pretty much their terms and their price. Okay, it's not that strong yet, but it's getting there. It's going in that direction. You know what makes this tool really good is because you are not giving them the answer, but you're providing them the tools, and the tools answer their question. So It's not my opinion. This is the data. This is the market. I'm going to, and based on my interpreting what the market is saying, it's saying this, and what does that mean to you? Well, that means, it's a strong buyer's market, or it's a strong seller's market. It means, there's downward or upward pressure on price based on that. And it means you're in more control or less control based on that also. So it's about looking at the data, and the data has validity, whereas your opinion may not. If you don't back up what you're saying to them, you may know this information off the top of your head. And if you just talk to them and tell them about it, they're thinking, well, this is just your opinion. But if you show them these visuals, you can print these out and show them, or you can go online, just like I'm doing with you, and show them this. Now, what you're saying is valid because it's backed up by the data. And you're just interpreting what the data is saying, and then you're letting them know, well, this is what it means to you and how it impacts your experience as a buyer or as a seller in this particular market for condo or single family home. And you're the expert because you have this data. Not only that, but and this applies to everything, and I try to tell everybody this all the time. You should never really give your opinion about anything. When someone asks you a question, you should say, well, based on the TrendGraphix data, that's the answer to the question. Well, what's the square footage of the home? Instead of saying, well, it's 1,735 square foot, you should say, according to the tax roll and the tax record, or according to the last appraisal that was done that the seller has on the property, the square footage is. You should always make reference to, don't let the words be your words. Let your words come from another source of information. It puts you in a much less liable position also. If there's an issue that the information that you're giving is maybe not accurate, it wasn't your information, it was the tax record, it was the appraiser, it was TrendGraphix, it was what the seller said, it was what the buyer said, it's what the attorney said. It's not what you said. And you should be in the habit of using other sources or making reference to other sources of information for the answers to these questions, not your answer to the question. So let's take a look at this and see what this stuff is down here. So I'm going to go to the first one here, for sale versus sold. These numbers are trends, but depending on the day of the month, some of these are outdated information. So this is November of 2020 was the last graphs that being counted for here. However, we're halfway through the month of December. So how do I know what's going on if I want to be most current with what's happened in the last 15 days? You're not going to see it here. So then you can have numbers down here as an example. Here's from December 1st to what's happened from then to December the 14th. As far as what's for sale, what's sold, what's pending. So if you're looking at these numbers as an example in the very beginning of the month, I don't think they're very reliable because it's only a couple of days of what's happened. And usually, I think you need several days towards the end of the month to really get an accurate picture. I wouldn't give these numbers much credibility anywhere between the 1st and the 15th of the month. However, we're about the middle of the month now. Now, towards the end of the month, these numbers are going to start becoming more accurate. And you'll notice that if you start looking at this month to month. So you can see just in the first 14 days of December, the amount of properties for sale has declined by almost 2%. The number of properties that have sold have gone down by 18%. So this is what's actually got to the closing table. Interesting, look at the trend line of what's pending. The pendings have gone down. So obviously in the next 30 to 60 days, the number of solds, the properties that get to the closing table are also going to follow that trend line, which is going down. So this is continuing that trend line going down. Here's the pendings. The pendings are only down 2%, which is not a lot. So even though you see this red line dipping down, now you're going to see it kind of go straight across. And, you know, it's declined by 2%, which is probably, you're not going to see it that much. It's going to be a very, mostly flat or horizontal. Here's a good quick guide. If you just hover over the quick guide here, this will explain in more detail which each of these categories are. It helps you explain to your customer what this means and how to interpret the information. So this is an excellent guide for you as well.